This is going to be a video review of the Shanling M6 Pro. And you know what, there's several reviews out there on this thing, and I'm not gonna, and I am gonna compare it. I don't have the others here right next to it, but I do have some comparison stuff to talk about. And I'm not going to go in crazy detail on it, and I'm not going to show you the unboxing because there's a bunch of those videos too. But what I do want to cover is some things that I found out about it that might help you if you get one of these. First off, I think it's literally my favorite one right now. And only when I say favorite, I mean favorite because of sound. Now, I tested this against my M11 Pro and against the Sony WM1A, I think it is. Yeah, sorry. FiO M11 Pro is less expensive than this by just a little bit. And the Sony is almost the exact same price. So those are good comparisons. I really like the Sony, and I love that FiO. That's literally my favorite device. And the FiO is my favorite device, not just because of sound, but because of the way it works. The operating system, well, it's all Android. I tested this against the FiO M11 Pro and the Sony WM1A. At first, this was my least favorite as far as sound goes. I never really grabbed for it. And within the first month of using it, I went to turn it on, and the little red light came on the side, but the screen never came on. No matter what I did, it never came on. And I tried it again and again, and it wouldn't turn on. And I charge it, and the little battery would come up showing me that it was charging, but it would, that's it. I mean, it was fully charged. And so then I thought, something's frozen in the operating system, and that's why it's not coming up. And I contacted the vendor I bought it from, and they said, hey, can you send us a little video of what you're doing so we know? And I got busy with other stuff, and honestly, I was a little pissed off at that response. I just wanted them to like exchange for me because this thing wasn't working. So I left it in a drawer, and it was, I guess, finally after a month or two, the battery went dead. So I charged it, and sure enough, the battery was dead. And as it started charging, I went to turn it on, and it turned on. Then I went out to some forums and stuff, and people were talking about how there was a bug where this thing would go into sleep mode and not come out of it. So I was like, oh shit, so that's what this is. So I supposedly they fixed it in the latest firmware. I upgraded it to the latest firmware, and I've had it happen a couple times, but if I just long press the button, the on off button right here, it will reset. I don't have to wait for the battery to die for like 2 months. So that's good. So I haven't been really having issues with that. Now, I was using this pretty extensively because I wanted to, do sound comparisons and whatnot. And it never sounded any better than the FiO M11 Pro. In fact, I felt the M11 Pro sounded better than this. And the Sony sounded different but better. The Sony has a little slightly warmer signature to it. So I was playing around with this, and I pulled the drop down here, and I saw DAC single, and I touched that, and it went DAC turbo, and I thought, DAC turbo. And my fault for not really reading through the instructions were in Chinese, so it didn't help, but not my fault for not really studying how everything operated on it at the time. But I put on turbo DAC, and I put back in my headphones, and right away, immediate difference. Like, it's hard to explain, but it was much more detailed, more open. And I don't want to use these weird audiophile terms, okay? But this is the truth. I think you may have seen my other video on the Sony and the FiO and another device and the comparison between them. And I said they were all so similar, right? Initially, this and the FiO didn't sound any different. Like, I couldn't figure out why I'd want one over the other because there was no difference other than the FiO had a much better interface. So, but now with the firmware update and this turbo DAC, which is because this has 2 DACs in it, and it by default it runs through one DAC in single DAC mode. When you put on what they call turbo DAC, it's basically dual DAC. So both DACs are being utilized. It just pulls more detail out. Now, it wasn't extreme like, sit up in your chair and blow your ears off, but it was very noticeable, and it gave the music a much sweeter tone to it. I know it's not really an audiophile term. What does that mean? Sweeter. That's the word that came to mind. I was like, wow, it's just, I enjoy listening to it much more. And so I found that over the last few months, this is the device I reach for. Now, the next thing, Shanling's player. Here, I'll open that up. So their player, hopefully this is recording okay and not doing a bunch of weird stuff on the screen, but this thing sucks. I don't know how many of you have used it, but their interface is horrible. It's like literally the worst one I've ever used. And there's so many reasons why. When you're in folder mode, which is what I use mostly, I go here and I go to folders, I choose that folder, that high res. And now when I start to scroll through here, if I want to go, now I have a lot of folders on here. I have like 24,000 songs on this thing. So I have to do with both thumbs like this, trying to, for quite a bit to get to, look, I'm only on F. Okay, I'm on J. Okay, I'm on M. So it gets, when I'm trying to jump around, if I'm going to ZZ Top and then back to Amanda Martinez and then back to Yo-Yo Ma and then back to someone, Beyonce. I mean, it's like crazy. All the other devices have a sidebar that pops up and lets you go by letter. Like I scroll down till it says R and I let it go and I'm in the R's. FiO has that, the Sony has that, and it's very quick to navigate. This thing is ridiculous. Several times I was playing a DSD file in this app and the player just crashed, like it restarted. I just had a lot of funky things happen with this. And that was my biggest drawback. That was the one reason I kept the FiO, because it was like the FiO didn't sound as good, but the interface was just so much better. Like I really liked that interface, So what I ended up doing was I installed FiO, FiO music player. Now, interestingly enough, on my FiO, on the M11 Pro, I tried using Hybe and a couple of other music interfaces for it, or music players for it. And I did comparison back and forth. Same thing I did on here, where I had both apps open. I was able to do that. And then I had the same headphone in. I just switched from one app, play. I'd get the song up on both of them. I make sure the volume is right. And I'd go to, like, let's say here, I'd go to the FiO app and I'd play this first song. Let it play, get a feel for it, stop, swipe over to the other app, play, get a feel for it. And I kept doing that back and forth. And in the FiO, there was quite a bit of difference between the other players and the FiO music player. So on the FiO device, the M11 Pro, my guess is that they designed that application to work specifically with the hardware and the device to pull the best quality or the most out of it that they could. That's how it felt. With the FiO music player, I was thinking, okay, is this going to be good? Is it going to suck? I mean, because I want the best quality sound. So I did that. I opened up the Shanling player and the FiO music player side by side. A list of songs. I started with one, switched back and forth, went to another one, back and forth. I couldn't find any difference at all in sound. It was exactly the same. So that means that the Shanling music player isn't specifically written for this hardware, is just a player that's just sitting on top of the Android. So that's good. So that's really good. That means other players can be used and it won't degrade the quality of the sound. So now that I have the FiO music player on here, I have the interface that I want, because I love the FiO music interface. It's so I can show you right here, and hopefully you can see this. We'll see. When I start to scroll, little thing comes up here. I can go just by letter. Oh, ST, boom, I'm there. So very quickly I can move around. Same thing. It has this at the very front screen. It has all the recent stuff you've played right here. which I really like because a lot of stuff I listen to it over and over, especially when I'm testing stuff. So I can very easily go, you can see a bunch of easily get to the stuff I listen to and I like all the time. So I really like the File Music Player. That is my favorite music player of all that I've tried. Again, that was the only one that sounded good on the File M11 Pro, but on the M6 Pro, it sounds equal to the Shanling player, no difference. So now I've got the sound that I want and the player that I want, or the interface. So now I'm very happy with this device. And in fact, I'm going to sell, I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to sell the File, the M11 Pro, because I'm going to get the M17. I want to try that out. So I'm going to sell that. I don't think I'm going to sell the Sony. We'll see. The Sony's a little bit overpriced for what you get, but it is a good player. And it's kind of like, I'm a little bit of a Sony fanboy. So I like that player. I might keep that. But this M6 Pro is the one that I use almost solely now with the File Music Player. I don't know. There's a lot of videos that cover all the things this does. It has 4.4, 3.5 balance, 2.5, USB-C charging and USB DAC mode. Buttons on the side, pretty tactile, really nice. Slot for the SD card. On-off volume as well as, on-off button as well as volume. And when it goes to sleep, you can set it to just touch the screen and it comes on. Remember, if you have this player or if you get this player, go and download the firmware, get this to the latest firmware, because that resolves a lot of issues. It makes this thing pretty much perfect. And then go to DAC mode and set it to turbo DAC. That's when it's using both DACs all the time. You're going to get more battery drain, but the sound quality is superior. And my guess is that if you are listening to a song that you know well and you touch DAC, if you go back between single DAC and turbo DAC, you're going to hear the difference back and forth. I did right away. And on some songs, it was less apparent. I had to really listen, or maybe I didn't hear much of a difference. But on other very well recorded songs, I heard a big difference right away. So that was my experience. Latest firmware, switch to turbo DAC, install the File Music Player. It's the best one, and it works fine on this. And now this is my player of choice. This is what I use all the time. It's also smaller than the M11 Pro. It's a solid piece of aluminum. It's very well made as far as that goes. You could hit somebody with this thing, but and do some damage. It could be like your defensive weapon, when you're traveling or something. I don't know, but I'm very happy with this thing, and the price has gone up. It's $1,000 now for this. I didn't pay $1,000. I bought this, quite a while ago, because it sat in a drawer for a few months with the battery draining out because it was stuck in sleep mode. That issue has not happened since I updated the firmware. So I think that was based on the firmware, what was going on. I highly recommend this player. I think it sounds fantastic. And with the File Music Player, it just makes it perfect. Anyway, okay, hope this helps you out. This is my M6 Pro kind of mini review. Not too great a detail, just really fixing some issues and explaining to you that you should be in turbo DAC mode. It doesn't drain the battery that much more. And it's really worth it for the increase in performance of sound. Okay, guys, have a great day.